This week we've talked a lot about the City of Buffalo's new budget, with the Common Council voting 6-2 to pass the $622 million spending plan as we look live at City Hall tonight. So we know it includes an 8% property tax increase along with $16 million or so in savings by not filling vacant positions. But at the end of the day, the total budget is still going up about 1%. An analysis in Investigative Post says the spending plan, quote, recycles many of the fiscal sins of the Bryon Brown administration, whose specious revenue and expense projections yielded deficit after deficit, backfilled first with cash from the city's savings accounts and more recently with federal pandemic relief funds. Now that money's all gone, leaving the city to correct its chronic budget imbalances without a safety net. Jeff Kelly is associate editor with Investigative Post, and he wrote those words earlier today. Jeff, great to get your insight on this budget because we've all been sort of processing it. It's a lot of money, $622 million. There was some contentious debate in the council before the members ultimately passed it. I don't know that anyone thinks this is a great budget. How do you see it? It
was never going to be a great budget. The city is in this sort of fiscal quagmire that's been building, over the course of a decade at least, and probably longer than that. And it's going to take several years to pull it out. This budget is maybe the best that could be done given the circumstances, but it's not really the answer. As the words you read of mine, they sound a little harsh, but I think they're accurate. I think that this budget, almost by necessity, repeats a lot of the practices that the Brown administration used that got us here, and a lot of that has to do with underestimating expenses and overestimating revenues. Yeah. And to make the budget balance on paper, you almost have to do that. You almost have to cheat a little bit. But the thing is, what we're learning this year and actually in the last couple of years is that it catches up with you. Eventually, and now without that safety net that you mentioned in the article. That's right.
Give me a couple of those examples of, overtime pay we know has been way higher every year than is budgeted. They continued that. Settlements that the city has to pay out, always more than is budgeted. They continued that. What else sticks out? And so some of the overtime is a big one, right? It's the budget is $10 million less than the average of what the city has spent in recent years. So that's a big one. But it's a lot of little things that add up too. It's like expecting, maybe $5 or $6 million out from parking violation fees and things like that, and traffic tickets. But in the end, maybe get half that. And so that's a couple $1 million you got to find somewhere else. It's a bunch of little things like that. And so the settlements for lawsuits, particularly related to police misconduct, those sometimes, the city skates by with $4 or $5 million, but then sometimes it's 10 or 12, like it's looking to be this year. And then every once in a while they get hit with a huge one, as they did a couple of years ago. It was $43 million they had to borrow. Yeah. When you're self-insured, that's the risk that you take. Right. I only have a little bit of time left here, but so what happens 6 months from now? We'll find out, right, how good the budgeting was and how big a hole we might be in? Yeah, 6 months from now, as we get toward the end of the calendar year, the administration will have to take stock and figure out, well, did these revenues materialize? Did they not? What do the expenses look like? And how are we going to finish out the year? The contingency plan that the mayor has put forward is to borrow. If the money's not there, if the money doesn't come fast enough from the sale of parking ramps, issue a short-term deficit note and maybe lay off some people. There is a lot to this analysis that Jeff published earlier today. Go to investigativepost.org to read that. Important stuff. Jeff Kelly, thanks for coming in. My pleasure, Al.